This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime. In association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.
Cities are engines of growth, and in many ways, urbanization a reflection of the Indian growth story. But have transportation and infrastructure facilities managed to keep up with the fast pace of urbanization? Hello and welcome to this special show where we explore social innovations for future. What needs to be done to turn our urban centers into sustainable and efficient cities? India is growing fast. Urban India is growing faster. As per the 2011 census, over 31% Indians are living in urban areas. This number is expected to rise to 600 million by 2030. Still, 20 years later, by 2050, over half of India's population would be urban. In 1951, only 5 cities in India were large enough to be home to more than 1 million people. But by 2011, 53 cities had a population larger than 1 million. Cities like Faridabad, Surat and Nashik have grown much faster in the last decade than the metros.
How do cities actually prosper? What kind of businesses work? What are the economic drivers of cities? We have not paid attention to these things.
No, we keep talking about cities as the engines of economic growth. I say if the cities are the engines of economic growth, the transport system are the wheels of that engine.
As the effects of rapid economic development and urbanization place an even greater strain on transportation networks worldwide, the traditional practices used to meet the rising demand are becoming increasingly unsustainable.
One of the main functions that a city performs is to accommodate the movement, the mobility of people. If that physical movement in space is all going to be about getting into your own car, getting onto your own motorcycle, then we are talking about millions of people using a public infrastructure like the street only to get from one point to another. Now that's unsustainable and actually impossible.
The cities first of all need to set a benchmark of not letting private motor vehicles go beyond a certain level, because they are the largest consumers of resources, whether it's road space, whether it's fuel or it's environment, in all senses. So large cities cannot afford to have more than about 15% by private modes. So 85% has to happen by public transportation and by walk and by cycling. In smaller cities, maybe that number of private motor vehicles could be a little more, could go to about 20% or 25%, but no more than that.
Delhi, with nearly 1.5% of the Indian population, accounts for more than 7% of all motor vehicles in the country. In 2011, there were more than 7 million registered motor vehicles in Delhi, when its population was over 16 million. And that's not all. About 600 additional vehicles are registered in Delhi every day.
If you have congestion, the normal practice was, let's widen the road so there's more space for the car. But what we've learned is that it doesn't stay that way. More cars come on the road and you get the same congestion but a higher level of traffic, which means you have the same congestion but with more emissions, more fuel consumption, and the situation has actually got worse.
The costs associated with a growing automobile fleet and increasing road network capacity include air and noise pollution, accidents, congestion, social inequality, and climate change. Transportation currently causes 23% of energy-related carbon dioxide emissions, and without changes in policy, it is projected to grow to 80% by 2050.
Millions of people who are traveling right across the city to go to their places of work every day. So commuting distances have become very, very long. And that's unsustainable because the environment impact of those long journeys that are being taken every day, which are not being done by rail, those are simply unsustainable.
The population explosion has resulted in an exponential increase in the number of vehicles on Indian roads, and the lack of a proper public transportation system in most cities only adds to the problems. So what are the solutions?
We are planning a multi-pronged approach to tackle this problem of congestion in urban areas. One, moving the population through satellite towns. Yes. Second is by focusing on expansion of the mass transport system.
The National Urban Transport Policy encourages the government to build public transport, to look at the needs for non-motorized transport. So you and I might every day be seeing at least, maybe even using cycle rickshaws. That's called non-motorized transport. Even walking is actually non-motorized transport.
Rest of the cities in the world typically have around 40% or a little more even in certain situations of people traveling by public transportation.
We have to focus on public modes of transport. When I say public modes of transport, of course, it could mean metro systems, which are rail-based systems. It could also mean buses. Depending on the size of the city, we need to find the most appropriate combination of different modes. But any one city will need multiple modes of transport. So we must find ways to integrate different modes of transport together.
December 24, 2002, a memorable day for Delhiites as the metro rail was flagged off in their city. Delhi's mass rapid transit system, its metro, can be seen essentially as a social sector project whose benefits pervade wide sections of the economy. These include time saving for commuters, reliable and safe journey, reduction in atmospheric pollution, reduction in accidents, less fuel consumption, reduced vehicle operating costs, increase in the average speed of road vehicles, improvement in the quality of life, and a more attractive city for economic investment and growth.
If we had introduced rail-based mass transit earlier in the city, we could have probably avoided a lot of the unfortunate consequences of expansion that we are seeing today.
According to a study, around 523 crore rupees is saved annually in fuel costs, and the cost in terms of time of passengers saved per year works out to a whopping 2,978 crore rupees. The Delhi Metro, a game changer for India's capital city. 200 trains making 2,700 trips every day, covering 70,000 kilometers and carrying over 2 million passengers. The numbers will only increase once 140 kilometers of new metro corridors like the one behind me are added in the next 2 years. Clearly a success story waiting to be repeated.
Government will subsidize wherever there is need for subsidy. For example, in metro, metros are subsidized. Yes. But at the same time, there is a public-private partnership. Government gives some 50% and the state government gives some 50%. Then you have an organization like JICA, which is giving a soft loan where interest rates are very low. You create a facility, then you are able to decongest the cities to some extent.
As the metro rail enters newer but fast-growing smaller towns and cities like Kochi, Jaipur, Nagpur, Surat, Lucknow, Kanpur and Guwahati, the central government is all set to relax the financing norms and fund metro projects in towns and cities with a population over 10 lakhs. Mumbai, the financial capital of India, is the heart of commercial and trade activities. 11 million people use public transport daily to get to work. The railway carrying the lion's share of 52% and buses around 26%. The existing suburban rail system is already under extreme pressure, and the existing role of the bus system is limited to providing feeder services to the suburban railways.
Mumbai is what we call a linear city. So you have one or two trunk corridors which carry the highest volumes, and then you have a few, radials getting out of it. That kind of a city, if you put a metro system along that spine, or these two spines it has, it's meeting the demand for most of the people. And that's why in the Mumbai suburban, you see such huge traffic. It carries 6 million people a day.
The metro rail connectivity seems to be the best solution for this maximum city. 9 metro corridors covering a length of over 146 kilometers are under implementation at an estimated cost of over 67,000 crore rupees. Coming up next, what makes the Ahmedabad BRT such a success story?